7 o'clock. It is the 21st of November. I'm here to bring you another, hopefully, wonderful show that you will be able to enjoy. And how have you all been coping with this terribly cold weather? I must say that it does take the wind out of my sails. I don't like the cold at all. I've never complained about the heat. I've got shows to be able to verify that. But this cold is something else. It really is. Now, what I'm going to say to you is I want you to all wrap up warm. There are plenty of people that are coming to me within my GP surgery talking to me about coughs, colds, this, that and the other. And it is exceptionally busy. But I've had a busy week so far. And I want to share a few interesting things with you before my guest hopefully comes and arrives onto the show, because we've been awaiting this for a very long time. One of those things is that over the weekend, I went to host an event actually at the largest representation. It was an inaugural event of the largest representation of British Pakistani doctors of Pakistani heritage from Northern Europe, more like. And this inaugural event took place in Walsall in Birmingham. And it was an absolutely wonderful time that I had. It really was. And I'm going to give a shout out to somebody who came all the way from Doha. He's my classmate. His name's Adil Rasool. And I really want to thank him for coming all that way. It's wonderful to see him after so many years. I studied with him and he hasn't changed a bit, although he will disagree with me. And the other shout out I wanted to give was to a really special little boy. And this is a little baby who has come across on my Facebook contacts. And the reason why I want to give a shout out to him is his name is Abdullah Hassan, first of all. And the reason why I want to give him a shout out is my request to all of you is to come together to pray for him, because he's a little boy who has recently been diagnosed with cancer. So let's all put our hands together and pray for his good health, his speedy recovery, so we can see his beautiful face smiling with his mummy and daddy and his family. And it was his uncle that shared his details. So we're all going to wish him all the best and send our love from everybody on the Salaam radio show. So today, my goodness, how exciting. We have a wonderful, wonderful show. I have a very famous personality of Peterborough. I don't really think I need to introduce him, but actually I am going to, because, you know, he is worthy of that amount of respect. And it's been difficult to nail him down, but I'm so glad I got him. In fact, I was getting palpitations that he might not come today, but he's here. Thank God. Thank you so much. So, oh, thank you. And he brought me a cup of tea as well. How lucky am I? I really needed that, by the way. Said bye. So this is my dear brother Saeed. Now, our brother Saeed in Peterborough, we know very well. He helped set up Community First in Peterborough in December 2015. And this was to tackle grassroots issues within the community, mainly litter, flyer tipping, and antisocial behaviour and drug taking, which is what our show is about today. And as a community organisation, they're currently working to set up a youth club. We'll talk a little bit about that. Scout group at the Beeches School, along with their wonderful flower beds. I've seen the primroses on my way in here, and a domestic violence issue. So today we're going to be talking about the practical issue of tackling drug addiction within the community. Assalamu alaikum, brother Saeed, and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you so much. No, not at all. Let me put your mic up first of all. Do you want to say Assalamu alaikum again to us?
Wa alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum to all the listeners.
Oh, Brother Saeed, thank you so much for coming. Honestly, I can't tell you how much this means. And I can, you know, when I spoke to you about this topic, I felt that passion come forth.
Yeah.
That day on the Macmillan Cancer Day. I'll never forget the conversation that we had. And you then emailed me Russell Brand's 12-point plan. And we're here to talk about practicalities. We're here to talk about the nitty-gritty of it.
We are, yeah.
What made you think about doing some work in this area, Brother Saeed?
So you're fairly new to the city, so we've sort of grown up in this city, and we always, as people from the community, not just myself. I mean, I'm just one person. There's others behind me. So you know Brother Suja very well from Children of Adam.
Sure.
We've always worked together quite closely, and in around about 1995 was the time when we sort of came across issues that we thought were pertinent for us as young people then to tackle. And we sort of went around tackling the same kind of issues that I'm talking about today that are still prevalent, but in a different manner, because we were slightly differently constructed then. So we more of took it on board and took matters to our own hands rather than involve the authorities and stuff, and start dealing with drug dealers and certain issues in our community in that manner. Yeah. And that was back in 1995.
Okay.
And the issues that we saw then was the gradual increase in the supply of drugs by young people, and also the consumption. So we're seeing a lot of young people getting addicted to drugs, especially hard drugs like cocaine and heroin, and that in society is a problem that's just going to create more problems. So drugs, in a sense, are one of the base forms of vice that control every other kind of crime that you'll see in the street. So when burglaries increase, it tends to be because of the drugs. When antisocial behaviour increases, it tends to be because of drug supply and demand issues in communities. So that's the kind, and we've seen recently now these things have been taking more prevalence on the streets as well. One of the things that our group does, we do litter picks. We've noticed that there's an increase in the amount of used needles we're finding.
Yeah.
So just as an example, if we look at 2 weeks that we did, 2 separate days along the Borges Boulevard from Russell Street to the Newark Avenue down to the Triangle. So just that cycle path, we found about 100 needles, so about 50 in this end and 50 or so up at the top end.
Oh my goodness! All in one day.
That's 2 separate days, because it was quite a long stretch.
Yes.
But you could class it as a day, because we did a couple of hours one day and a couple of hours the next day. It's the same all over the city. So you got over in Woodston at where is it, Rail World.
Okay.
They found in one day, I think, 170 needles in one spot. So it's a problem that's increasing, and not enough is being done. That's the issue. There's not enough being done to help young people get off or avoid getting onto drugs. And there's so many social issues that are the cause of that young people are turning to highly addictive substances like heroin.
Yeah.
It's mainly heroin and crack cocaine. So we're finding a lot of people using shrubbery and bushes where they all leave bottles full of water, and they're using them as crack pipes and stuff like that. So it's the same places where we as children would play hide and seek. Today, when we walk down those same cycle paths and alleyways and into those bushes, we find that there's people sleeping there, and that's again it's an illness of the same cause. It's all caused by the drug misuse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So people have their reliance on drugs is that important that they don't care about where they live, where they sleep. It's more important to actually feed the habit than it is to find a suitable place to call home.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That's sad that in this country, in this world, in the year that we're in, that's happening on our streets, and we need to really do more about it. I mean, there's organisations that do a lot of work, but more needs to be done at the grassroots level with young people. Yeah. And that's what I want to work on.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about what your initiatives are. Now, Brother Saeed, this is going to be a really practical show, less clinical, I would say, because we really need to talk about the main issues at hand. So one aspect is we're talking about people who are taking the drugs, and then we're talking about, because of that demand, there's that supply, which is posing as a problem.
Yep.
Okay. Surely there are individuals responsible for that supply, and in order to tackle the issue of people taking the drugs, which obviously there are organisations doing it, there has to be a separate programme amalgamated with whatever you want to do, addressing that supply. And part of that, I believe, would be in education of these youngsters that you and I know are involved in supplying, isn't
That's right,
it?
Yeah.
Where does this all come from, Brother Saeed?
So the biggest issue you'll find with young people is a lack of education leads to a lack of prospects, and also if that also entails a lack of skills. So if they haven't got any practical skills like plumbing, electrics, bricklaying, those kind of things, and those things are not really appealing to a lot of young people, which you'll find. There was been, until the borders opened with Europe and we had a lot of immigration, there was always a shortage of plumbers, electricians and carpenters in this country. And that's finished, obviously, because of the amount of people we've had from Europe. But the issue with young people is they won't take up these skills because it's easier. So mankind is naturally, it flows like water.
Yeah.
So water always finds the easiest route, and when a human is looking to fulfill a need, they'll find the easiest way to fulfill that need. And the easiest way is to earn as much money as you can, as quickly as you can, and not look at the circumstances or the issues that could lead to. So if that could lead to prison, prison is not a deterrent anymore, because prisons are now almost youth clubs, and almost, they're places where they at this moment in time have access to mobile phones, drugs, money. All of that flows into the prison system. So it's not a conducive place where they can go and they can come back and feel any kind of remorse, or feel that they need to change their lives. Yes, they've lost that time with their family. So if they're family men, they'll have that. But if they're not family men, they're young men who don't have that connection, don't have children, don't have anybody else that relies on them other than their mum and dad, they'll carry on doing the same thing, because it's far easier to earn that money than it is to earn money practically in finding a job in a factory or in a warehouse and things like that. Sure. And that education is the biggest issue. We know that young Pakistani, Bengali men are the worst in education and statistics in this country. So that then creates that vacuum, because there's no education, there's no skills, therefore there's no prospects. If there's no prospects, therefore you've got to earn money. I mean, you're going to want a new phone, you're going to want things, you're going to need things, and how are you going to get that money? You're going to find the easiest route to do that, and that is to sell drugs and anything else you can find to do.
Brother Saeed, I want to ask you, we're going to be addressing the big white elephant in the room, and we've got listeners that are listening to us at the moment. On Facebook alone, we've just got 10 listeners at the moment that are listening to us, and many have joined. There'll be probably hundreds more people in the cars, etc. We have to address the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is that we are parents of children. What is going wrong? Is it starting from home? Do we hold the parents accountable? Where is this going, this direction whereby the emphasis of education with children is just not there within that demographic of British, Pakistani and Bengali children not getting the educational attainment that would possibly see them gain a better quality of life? Do you feel the responsibility lies with the parents? You give me your views, and I'd like to talk to you about what I feel. Yeah,
sure. I mean, it does ultimately come down to parenting. So you'll find a lot of parents are either working two jobs. So a father will be driving taxi in the morning, or he'll be working in the factory and driving taxi on the weekends, and not seeing his children as much and not having that input. And you'll see that across the community. It's not just across the Muslim community. These issues are across all working class communities, where because of the austerity we've been under, it's difficult for one person just to live off one salary. It means both parents are working in most circumstances, and that means that the father goes to work, the mother comes, she comes home, the mother goes to work and the father comes home, and there's not that interaction with the children, there's not that interaction as a family, and everybody's just trying to get by. Yes, that's not everybody. In our community there's people that are well off, and in all communities there's people that are well off, but the working class people, the people where the issues are, where the young people have no other choice and they have to turn to it. They have to turn to another form of earning an income, because they want to live in the West. They see everything that that's put in front of them, the new phones, the cars, the clothes. Just a pair of trainers for a young person can cost up to they cost thousands of pounds. If you want a pair of Yeezys, you can't buy Yeezys just like that. You've got to buy them second because somebody's already bought them, and that's, you're looking at £800-900 a pair, and that's not easy money. And the thing is, it's a whole issue. It's not just a parenting issue. Parents are left in a situation where they have to put money on the table. They have to pay the mortgage, otherwise the family will be out on the streets.
Yeah.
So when parents are doing that, the children are left neglected, and there's not enough emphasis on the education. So I've brought up children in this country, and I mean, one of my children dyslexic, so he's had a real battle, and I've had a real battle to try and get him enough help and to get him the education that he needs. And it's not been a success, but I still carry on, and I still care for him, and I work and make sure that he's got a direction. So he's not just sitting at home doing nothing. He has a direction. So he's got a choice. He can come and work for me, or he's got a choice. He can go out and find a direction. And that's what he's doing. He's constantly looking and trying to get that avenue so that he can make something. But it's not every parent is capable of that. Some of that comes down to, in our community, comes to family structure. Yeah. So you have one parent that's British, one parent that's from the subcontinent. And there's a lot of families like that. And there's a disconnect. So young children that are brought up here, they don't have a connection with the parent that's from the subcontinent. So because that connection lacks, there's a there's a communication gap. So I can communicate to my children, whereas my wife, who's from Pakistan, she doesn't have the same kind of understanding. It's slightly different. So I have to be the one that has to work harder to make that work.
Yeah.
And that it's all about having the responsibility, that caring not just about your bank balance, but caring about the balance of society, because you have to, your bank balance will be left here and people will fight over whose it is. But everything else around you is your responsibility, and you have a core responsibility to your neighbors, to the streets around you, and then to the country as a whole, and to the world in general. So it's about having that bigger outlook, and sometimes we get narrow-minded in our communities. I find that a lot of people, and when I say our communities, I don't mean just the Asian community. When you go into any kind of community, because I travel across the city quite a lot, and I see a lot of different people from different backgrounds and interact with them, and it's everywhere. People get into their, if you live in Paston, you're from Paston, it becomes postcodal areas and all kinds of things that we see happening in bigger cities. So it's about opening up and finding your responsibility, because we all have a social responsibility. Sometimes I think I'm talking too much as well. Please tell me if I do.
No, I'm so happy that you're talking, because I've already been hammered by listeners in the past saying, you talk too much, Dr. Shabina, let him speak. So I'm happy that you're talking, because this show's all about, obviously, it matters in the community, and who knows that better than you, in my opinion.
I disagree. I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot to give back to the community. It's all about nurturing, especially the young people, for them to have that responsibility.
Yes.
And where we lack in that is that there's been some issues, obviously, with the first generation coming in, having one view that we're here to make money, to get rich, and either go back home or whatever. And then the first British generation of Muslims or Pakistanis that came here and then came over with their parents or were born here, they had a slightly different outlook. They had to work harder as well. And now the new generation are getting a lot on the plate. So a lot of things are already paid for. You don't have to worry about a mortgage, don't have to worry about a car. Everything's already there. And then all of a sudden it's like, what do we want? We want extra things. And then it's losing touch with reality, that really this world is temporary, and this is what we forget. And this world is a short period where we will be here, and then everything we do, we take with us as a judgment for what we've achieved. So it's about, if your intention is right, if you make the right intention and you can't do anything right, it's still the ajr and the swab is still there, and that's what you got to attain in this world. So it's really important to have that vision, to understand that as Muslims, what's our purpose, and as human beings, we have a purpose. Because sometimes I encounter it a lot, where in our community we get into a bubble and people, a cocoon, where people think that it's only the Muslims that they need to care for. And it's not. I'll give you a short story. So I was on a flower bed, and we were just putting down some wood chipping, and an uncle came over to me and started discussing about the flower beds and how the councillors weren't doing anything, which is a totally different subject. But he mentioned one thing about a homeless lady that lived near his house, and she lived in a car, in a cul-de-sac. And he said there's this homeless woman, somebody's give her access to a car, and she sleeps in this car, and she uses the surroundings as a toilet, and our children come out and they play in her waist. And I had a fork in my hand, and I literally had to bury that fork in the ground because it made me so angry that for that uncle, and there's a lot of this mentality, for that uncle, that young lady who was living on the street didn't have any importance. The importance was for the young children that were our young children, because she wasn't one of ours. And I find that constantly, where people think that they are separate to the rest of society, and that's a disease that we need to. It's a barrier that we need to overcome. And we need to break that barrier and destroy it, because we live in a wider society where we have a wider responsibility. And when somebody's on your doorstep, I had to explain to the uncle, I had to say to the uncle that young lady, whose is she? Whose creation is she? She's the same. She's created by the same God that you believe in. And just because she doesn't follow your religion, does that mean that she is not worthy of your help? I go, she's outside your house. Have you ever gone over, handed her a piece of fruit or a bottle of water? But there you are complaining that she is a blight on your life and on your community, and you need her removing. Well, she's there as a test for you. And this is what we overlook. You see, we can go to the mosque, we can bow our heads down 5 times a day, but if we don't clean our hearts, we are just creating for ourselves I don't even know how to explain it. It's a void. There's a big void. We think that building a mosque and having 5 times prayers and then not caring about the community. And I know that I'm not saying I'm the only person that cares about the community. There are so many people doing so much good work in our community. But when I come across this kind of racism, and I call it racism because racism exists in every form. It doesn't just exist that white people are racist to me as a brown person or a black person.
Absolutely.
We are duly as racist and we can be, and we need to admit to that. We need to acknowledge the problems and then step over those problems and try and remove them as much as we can, because if I don't like you because you're a different color or you're a different religion, society is not going to exist like that. And we can see all over the world the issues that racism and hatred causes.
Well, Brother Saeed, I can see that passion come forth from you, that there are so many other topics that we could definitely talk about. Now, in terms of this, the attitude that you were talking about just now, I think it's instrumental in playing a part. There are innumerous amounts, and this is where I say I'm really concerned, because there are innumerous amounts of men that I have seen as patients who have come to colleagues that I know within the city or are presenting to myself because of depression, emotional problems, because all of a sudden they have reached their zenith in life and realized that actually not enough attention was paid to, say, for example, their boys. And a numerous amount of patients have come to me presenting with symptoms of depression and saying, well, actually, my son's just come out of jail because of drug-related incidents. Well, actually, my son, I found out, is a supplier. Well, actually, my son is a drug addict. And that's what led me to talk to you about this, because a lot of them have stated, and again, we're talking about the elephant in the room, where we have to make cultural differences are there. The marriages have taken place, etc., whereby change and perspective, I feel, needs to be implemented in how mothers, fathers, yes, and mothers too, see and monitor their children on a closer basis and emphasize things that are important. I have had spouses say to me that the interest isn't there from my partner's side with regards to emphasis on education. There's not much. The mums don't know where the children are playing outside. I'm not generalizing. I'm giving specific examples, but that needs to be addressed, because I feel, and I do really fear, that we're going to lose a generation, and that void that you speak about, and attitudes need to change. We need to be a bit more inclusive. We need to be a little bit more incorporative with other people other than our own religion and race too, so that we get to understand and know other cultures.
Every issue is really, really complex, and just the issue on race is a really complex one. Because I can say from the perspective that I'm sitting here as a Pakistani British Muslim and say what my community's faults are, but the faults lie on all sides. I mean, I can go into all kinds of communities and have all kinds of reactions, and it's an issue that will happen in every generation. There will always be people that hate other people because of what they perceive of them, and the only way of tackling that is by breaking barriers and having conversations. So we have conversations, and conversation then leads to understanding. Then we can understand what the other person's issues are, where they feel the hate, where they feel that they're being misled or anything like that. And it's important to build those, and we can't build those if we don't have communication with the wider society and just stick to our own communities. We have to build out, and that's not just our community as a Muslim community. It's also a lot of white English people will not come to the Lincoln Road.
So we've got 10 seconds to go to the adverts. We've got a comment that's coming from a sister Ruxana Cole. So after the break, we'll be talking a little bit about Russell Brand's 12-point plan. We'll get back to that. So thank you very much, and join us after the break.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
1 in every 10 people live without access to safe, clean water. Let's give them a better choice than drinking either dirty water or no water at all. Together, we can turn this desperate situation around by delivering safe water solutions to the world's poorest people. Call 0161 225 0225 or visit humanappeal.org.uk.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road, Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
Third world and developing countries are home to some of the most vulnerable children on the planet. Malnutrition, severe lack of medical aid and access to clean water are just some of the horrific challenges faced by orphans across Africa and Asia. Children of Adam, a Peterborough charity, need your help to bring aid to these orphans for just £25 a month. To sponsor an orphan or assist with other projects, please call 0300 321 0032 or visit www.childrenofadam.net.
Peterborough just got a whole lot tastier. Five Lads Flame Grilled Peri Peri Chicken is now open. Bring your family and friends to Peterborough's first HMC meat selling restaurant. We are experts in grilled chicken, lamb chops and gourmet lamb and beef burgers. Our healthy options include fresh salads and fresh grilled vegetables. Fresh, clean and healthy grilled food with 4 different flavours. Lemon and herb, medium, hot and extra hot. 5-star hygiene rating. Eat in, order and collect or order for delivery on Deliveroo. Follow 5 Lads Peterborough on Facebook and Instagram 5 Lads. 15 Cowgate, Peterborough, PE1 1LZ. Call 01733 56 22 87. Open 7 days a week, 12 to 11 p.m.
Al-Murad Tiles. With over 70 stores nationwide, we are now open in Peterborough. Up to 50% discount offers now on. Largest selection of tiles. Full bathroom suites from only £189. Paint, LED lighting, laminate flooring from only £7.99. Over 1,000 designs of wallpaper in stock. We have everything you need. Come and visit us at 193 Fengate, Peterborough, PE1 5BH, or call us on 01733 34 58 47. Al-Murad Tiles, now open.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من سمت نجا. He who remains silent is successful.
Broadcasting 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This is Salaam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Body Health and Mind Show on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Brother Qasim's taking his musalla out of here. He's probably going to be praying in the background, but making sure that everything works very well. He's saying don't say anything. Anyway, I'm not going to waste time because this is such an amazing show. I'm just going to read out some comments that some sisters and brothers have made, Brother Saeed, because I've got the wonderful Brother Saeed from Community First in Peterborough here. So Sister Ruxana Koster, Salam brother, Jazakallah for tackling this taboo subject. If we don't speak up and continue brushing the subjects under the carpet, nothing will change in society. I think issues stem from lack of support within families due to shame and embarrassment. We need to be more emphatic towards each other. That's one that Sister Ruxana said. And then we have Brother Ivan Humble. Totally agree, brother. It's the fear of the unknown that pushes people towards hate. And it was dialogue with the other that helped me see the bigger picture in reference to the race issue that you were talking about. And Brother Mohammed Saeed, well-informed show. Wonderful. We've had some really good discussion before this. Now we're going to move on to Russell Brand's 12-point plan. I've read through it. Very colourful language, but very raw honesty has come out of it. Could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
So I came across this through a friend of mine, and we were having a similar discussion that I'm having with yourself, and she said to me that you need to really watch his documentary. I still haven't got around to watching his documentary. It's just not finding enough time. But yes, I've read through the 12-point plan, and he's a person that's been through a lot, and obviously everybody knows Russell Brand. He has a lot of money, so he's able to go to the clinics, and he's able to have that cleanliness and come back out. And some people like Russell Brand, and a lot of people hate Russell Brand because he gets a bit annoying. But when you read the 12-point plan, and it's important, it actually makes sense, and it's a guidance for those people, and it actually makes you acknowledge the fact that we tend to look at people that are addicted to hard drugs as not human. Yeah. They're classed as junkies, crackheads, smackheads. We have a myriad of names for them just to make them inhumane. But underneath the addiction, there's a human being. And it's important that we get that human being to take control back of their life. Of course. It's difficult. It's not an easy process. And, I've fortunately not been addicted to this kind of stuff, but I've had friends that have died from addiction, and I have not seen many people come clean from addiction of hard drugs. And it's really important that there's more work done in that field to help young people. In our communities, as one of the sisters said, is a taboo subject. So if there is addiction in the family or a close friend, it's hardly ever talked about. And if there is amongst young people, it's more about, those people get disengaged. Just like I said, they get treated as non-human because the addiction takes over their life. And it's about putting the support and the network out for people so that they know there's a hand out there that's reaching out to them to pull them back into real life, into reality, and get them off the erroneous addiction, because ultimately that addiction just leads to one thing. They'll corrode their own lives, and then they'll corrode society around them. And in the end, we see a lot of young people dying. And we see the increase of it. We see, like I said, with the needles, why are we finding so many needles on litter picks in areas that were classed as parks and play areas before? Because there is so much depression, so much anxiety, so much mental illness in the community, and it's not being dealt with. It's people are left to their own devices, and then those same people are being, in some cases, cuckooed, which is a term that the authorities use for when people's properties are taken over and drug dealers take over. And in other cases, those people are used to they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So they meet up with somebody, or a young person ends up homeless on the street because of family issues, whatever issues. They end up on the street, and they find somebody who says, I'll give you a place to stay. And they don't realize that they're being taken in and groomed, and those people will then get them addicted to drugs just so they can feed their own habit. And there's people tend to think that junkies or people that are addicted to drugs bring it on themselves. They pick the needle up and put it in their arms. What you don't realize is that person doesn't want to do that. That person wants to live a normal life, but they can't break out of it because there isn't that structure there to take them out of that addiction. Namely, I mean, we can go into the whole aspect of drug supply and how it feeds up the chain. It's not just a drug dealer is, you know, not just a hoard on the street. It goes much higher. You know, the chain of supply and demand. I mean, we know heroin is produced in mainly Pakistan and in that kind of region. It's called the Golden Triangle, and it comes to Turkey. From Turkey, it's shipped to Europe, and it doesn't just flow through Europe and Turkey. There's high level of government incorporation in there, because the stuff can't get out in container loads and just come and walk its way across so many borders and so many countries and arrive here in the West. There is collusion on a greater level, and that's a conspiracy we could go into much later. But we need to deal with the issue on our streets, because the battleground is on our streets.
It is.
It's our children. If we don't tackle the kids that we see today on drugs, tomorrow it could be our children, our grandchildren that could end up in a similar situation. And how will we feel then? So we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. There's a problem in our community where we tend to be, and this is the Muslim community in whole, and I take the Muslim community as Pakistani, the Turks, the Kurds, the Portuguese Muslims, and any other Muslim, Albanians. We're the biggest suppliers of drugs in this city. And I'll say that openly, and they'll know I'll say that openly. The biggest supplier of drugs is from the Muslim community, and it shouldn't be like that. And that's not just in this city. It's in you go to all the Muslim cities that have a majority Muslim population, you'll find a similar scenario there. And that comes down to, people need to take responsibility. They need to take responsibility when they have young children at home that have expensive cars on the driveway and are sleeping till 12 in the afternoon, and they're not acknowledging where's this money coming from, and they're happy because there's an income coming into the house. They have to acknowledge that there is a backlash that will happen for this. If you don't sort this out in your lifetime, then there's a backlash that will happen, because whatever goes around comes around. And I've seen that. I've seen that in families where people have dealt drugs for generations, and now their young people are now addicted to drugs, and they have no choice but to live with it, because that's what they've done to families all around. And sorry.
So no, I wanted to ask you, because you come across as someone sort of very direct in thought. These are you are the type of people we need to tackle this problem. I want to ask you a question here. We have so many people listening on this show. I really hope and pray that we have a supplier listening to this show somewhere in the city. If that young boy was sat in front of you now, I'm talking about supplier, what would you say to him?
Well, to my young brothers, and in some circumstances sisters, there is a consequence for everything that you do. And you might be young today, and not fear those consequences, but the Lord Creator of this world sees everything that goes on, and specifically speaking to the Muslim population, I will say that your actions today are going to have such a big ramification for your personal life, for your family life, and for the life of the Muslim community and the general community as a whole, that you're going to be held accountable. And you need to understand that one little supply of drugs, and I know the young people that do it, and they'll say that we're just going to do this for a little while. I can make a little bit of money and I can start my own thing. Yes, fine. You can think like that, but you got to understand that today you're going to ruin somebody's life. You're going to keep supplying, and a lot of youngsters will say, "Oh yeah, but if I don't sell him drugs, somebody else is going to sell him drugs. So what's the difference? If they don't buy drugs, then fine. I'll have nobody to sell it to, but they're going to buy it from somebody else. The issue is that you're actually supplying that person. That person could be robbing their family, could be robbing a community member, robbing a society, and just to feed that habit. And what you're doing is you're destroying the fabric of society. So communities are breaking down. We can't send the children into parks. We can't send the children out. We used to play as young children. We used to play to 10 o'clock at night in Ferry Meadows, and we used to walk back from Ferry Meadows in the dark. And it wasn't an issue. And we can't send the kids to the park today because there could be a drug war going on where people are throwing axes at each other and burning cars. And this is happening in the street that I live in. And how long, before this comes and lands on your own doorstep? So youngsters will be reluctant to listen to a direct message like that. They need examples, so they need to be shown. They need an education process where they're shown the consequences of what they're doing to one person, and that needs to be shown. They need to see that physically happen. They need to see physically that, I supply drugs to this person. What happens to this person? What does this person go through? And they need to feel that empathy, the sympathy for that person in order to realize that their actions are wrong. Because just me telling somebody you're doing wrong, you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to prison, they ain't going to listen to that. They're going to say to me, do one, because that's the mentality. Because the adrenaline, they're still young, and we've been through that. We've grown up like that. We never listened to our elders. Fortunately, we didn't get into this kind of thing, but it's still even if we did, it's still our responsibility to teach the young people that what's right and what's wrong, and to try and find opportunities for them, because it's all about opportunity. Sorry to cut you off there.
I'm going to read out some comments for listeners at the moment. Okay, there's some really strong comments coming forward for people that have appreciated this show, and then we can talk about the solutions, as you were just going to say. So I thought I'd bring this in, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So we've got Fiona Henry. Engagement with addicts is so important. Helping them take responsibility for their decisions is the only way addiction can be fought. Support and care has to be the way forward. Completely agree, Fiona. Ivan Humble. Well said, brother. Respect for being so open and honest about the real grassroots problems. Keep up the great work you are doing. Thank you, Brother Ivan. And then we have Jabeen Maqbool. Salaam, Shabina and Brother Saeed. It's so refreshing to hear Brother Saeed trying to tackle a topic that is very pertinent to the youth of today. It's a subject that has been around for years, but I think we are better equipped to understand and try to deal with it. Now we're actually talking about it. I personally believe young people nowadays expect instant gratification, giving you the thumbs up for that. So find it challenging to work hard and prefer the quicker way out. The work ethos is lacking, even with young people who have had formal education. Drugs are a way of getting rich quickly, just like you said. I also think parents need to question where their young children are purchasing such expensive gadgets without questioning the means of revenue. As a community, we all too often turn the blind eye on this matter, which is a shame in itself. On the back of that, just want to give you a small snippet of something. I met somebody today and we were talking about youth clubs, and there's one mosque here that provides youth clubs for young people. But there is an obvious lack of youth club provision within our religious institutions. Now, on the back of that, Brother Saeed, I'm just going to open the floor for you to say what you need to say about solutions to this problem, because this is something we're going to have to tackle, aren't we, as a community come together? What are your ideas?
So the solutions are on every level of our society. So like the sister said, the problem stems from the home. So the parents need to tackle the issues at home. Parents need to be provided with solutions and ways of tackling, because some parents find it difficult. You try and talk to your children, your teenage children. I was a teenager not too long ago, and we wouldn't listen to our parents. We'd walk out the door, we'd slam the door and we walk out. And then we'd take on influences from outside. So parents need training and education in ways of combating and tackling the issues. And it's not just this issue. I mean, we're in a small city here in Peterborough. You go to bigger cities and they've got bigger and much bigger issues where they've got young people sitting on planes and flying over to join ISIS and things like that. And those issues could easily happen in the city as well. We need to tackle those as well. So there's an education process that needs to happen for parents, and it's not they've got to come in by choice. Parents have got to come in. We can set up things that can help and guide them through the process, but they need to start to learn to take the actions and be affirmative with their kids and
break down those barriers of shame.
That's right. Yeah, the shame. It's I'm still boggled by people being stuck in that barrier where shame. I mean, we need to tackle these issues. If you keep saying shame, we're not going to talk about them, who's going to deal with them? Those children are going to turn to the internet. They're going to turn to other places where they're going to try and find solutions. They're going to end up solutions which then you're not happy with, or solutions that are not conducive to normal living society, and end up with all kinds of issues. I mean, I watched 2 documentaries back to back the other day, and opened my eyes. And it's a young lady from London, I believe, Dia Khan, and she's done one on white supremacists and one on extremists, and individuals that fought in wars in Afghanistan and stuff. And those 2 documentaries are really important for people to watch and understand what people are going through, what young people are being put through, and where they're ending up, and how they're ending up making those incredible decisions where it's either hate another person for their color or go to another country to fight in a war which they don't even understand what the purpose is. And that's just the parents understanding and giving the parents that know-how and giving them the skills to be able to tackle their children like that. And then there's the issues of provision for young people. So we've seen a systematic decline in the provision of young people. The building we're sitting in has a cafe called Hobson's. Hobson's was the youth club that we all went to as youngsters, and we had great memories of that, and it gave us a foundation, gave us a place to be, something to do rather than be on the streets. The generations that came after us didn't have those facilities. Youth clubs are taken away, and there isn't the same kind of provision. And now we're hoping to set up something here, but it's a funding process we have to go through. We have to put in an application. It goes to a board. They will decide, and if we fail at that hurdle, then we start at another one. When we find another funding pot, and we apply for that, and we carry on until I've got young people that want to come and work with youngsters. You had Sister Shabina there, and she's not been well for a while, but she in this same building used to run a young people's youth club, and it was very successful. And it was just because of her own health that she had to give that up, and she was doing a tremendous job here. And it's young people like her. There's others that are in the field of youth work. And youth work, when I speak to the council, they say that we are no longer providing the facilities or the youth clubs as we used to. What we will do instead is help communities set up their own youth clubs. And we're trying to do that, but it's going through a process. And the process, it's bureaucratic processes take a bit of time, but we will eventually get there. And we will try and set up these places. But like you said, there is one mosque or one masjid here that's actually doing that, and the other masjids need to learn from that, and they need to actually realize that the young people need provisions. We can't just ignore them and let them go to their, think that they're in education or they're working, that's it, they're living their life. No, there needs to be a purpose for them, and if we don't provide that purpose, then they'll find a purpose. And sometimes that purpose tends to be we live in a capitalist society, and it tends to be a purpose of greed. And when greed takes over, and we see it all over the world, most of the hatred and the wars in the world are all based on greed. When mankind just wants, there's a saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that if the son of Adam has one mountain of gold, he'll not be happy, he'll want another mountain of gold. And that's what we're like. We're constantly trying to gain more and more, and we take over countries and destroy whole communities. But on a smaller scale, when I step out on my front door, I see a war on the streets. And I see that war daily, where I see people dishing out death on a constant basis. I can be on I live in Russell Street, and very close to the city centre, and we have very few English speaking people in my street. And when I hear an English accent in my street, I always know that English accent is walking down my street. That's most likely a young person going to collect some drugs. There is a constant stream of this death being dished out on my doorstep, and I see it every day. I'll come home 3 a.m. from work, and I'll see a group of young people standing on a corner, all speaking fluent English with a proper English accent, and they're only there. They don't live in the street, because most of the people live in the street are either from my community or they're Eastern European or Portuguese, and there's hardly any English people in my street, and I'll see them, and they'll be standing there waiting 3 a.m. for somebody to drop some stuff off to them. So,
Brother Saeed, these people that you see on the street, what's your advice? Would you apprehend them? Calling the police, as you know, nowadays doesn't have the same, the police, I've heard, don't do anything, correct?
No,
would you apprehend them? Would that be a risk to you in any way?
It is a risk. I mean, sometimes they can get rowdy. I've seen them where they get rowdy amongst each other and they're shouting. And I can go out as a young, fit, healthy person and go and young. I call myself young there. I can go out as a male and a healthy person and approach them and speak to them and speak in a language that they would understand and get some common sense into them. That it's like 2 a.m. you're shouting your heads off. I can get that, but most people can't. I've had people complain to me, people in Lime Tree Avenue and other streets, saying that we get people coming here on different days waiting to pick up drugs, and they're all over the place making a noise, and we're reporting to the police, and the police is not turning up. And that in itself is another issue. That comes comes down to austerity, the cuts the police are facing. But there is, when you see the work the police do, I mean, I was at a event a couple of weeks ago, and some of the police officers, the things that they do, it's amazing work. And you can never, the individual police officers are not responsible. It's always the hierarchy, the higher up you go, the management. That's where the problems lie.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I've got a comment here from Brother Mohammed Saeed. He said something, and the reason why we're talking about this, we want to talk raw, and we want to talk with raw honesty. So this is why I appreciate you coming here and telling it how it is actually. Brother Mohammed Saeed says, I tell you of how bad the issue of drugs is. Reality is most don't have shame. It's actually in trend and fashionable to be a drug dealer or have a family member who is selling drugs. Not so long ago, a lad came out of prison after serving a few years for dealing. On his release, he was shocked to see so many people come round with sweets and cakes, etc. This drug dealer's own words, it feels like I've just come back from Hajj or Umrah.
Yep.
P.S. The dealer felt ashamed, but the community didn't. The problem is bigger than we can believe it to be. And that is so important.
It is.
This is talking to us as a community to say, for goodness sake, open your eyes. What are we doing to ourselves?
We have to wake up. We have to realize that sooner or later, this is, as it's the wrong terminology to use, but it's a ticking time bomb, and it's going to blow up in our faces. And we're the ones ultimately going to be held responsible for it. So, as I've tackled this problem hands-on. So I've been to the extent where I've taken physically the stuff off the drug dealers, their cars, their property, to stop them from doing that. And this was back in 1995. And, I've been arrested for intimidating drug dealers. It's coming to the stage where, I can't do that anymore.
How long were you kept in for, if you don't mind me asking?
No,
they interrogated you?
We had good solicitors, so we always managed to get out of that one.
Bless you.
It's never been as serious as that. But, we've tried different ways. Those were the ways that we thought that we could tackle them. Tackled them with the violence that they show, but it doesn't work like that. Young people, they need a route out, because not every young person that goes into that trade wants to do it. But the money is so enticing, the status is so enticing. The fast cars and the lifestyle is so enticing that they find it hard to get rid of. But inside everyone there's a conscience. Inside every murderer there's a conscience, and it's about educating that conscience and bringing it out. And just like it's with the addicts, they're human beings. I know one young man, he's from Manchester, and he is addicted because he has no family here. So once he ran out of money, he was out on the streets. He's a boxer by trade, and he's trained a lot of young people in one of the older boxing gyms that's closed now here in Peterborough, and a lot of Pakistani lads will recognize him. He's fought at a national level, but his circumstance that he's ended up in, homeless because no job, no money, chucked out of his flat, ended up with people and that have got him addicted to heroin, and now he can be seen on the Lincoln Road begging for money and addicted to the stuff, and it's ruined his life. But that person inside is capable of so much. He's been to the stage where he was a professional boxer, and he was training young people. I mean, he could probably take out 10 drug dealers on his own, and it's just being in the wrong place at the wrong time and not having that family structure to help them out. And we've gone back to talking about how the addicts need the help, and we really need to help these people, because if we let them carry on, there's going to be a myriad. It's a domino effect. So they will find somebody else that they will find vulnerable, that will fall into their field, and it will just carry on and on. And we need to tackle it on every level, and the level where the families can see what's happening in their houses, and they can see that young people are bringing in lots of money into their homes, and they're bringing in expensive gadgets, expensive clothes, and cars are parking up outside, and they're not questioning what's going on. They need to question that, because if you don't, you have a responsibility that you, on the day of judgment, are going to be responsible for everything else that's happened before you. And this is a call to the parents. The young people won't listen, because that's the mentality of a youngster. It's very hard to make a young person understand unless you can have that time with them. But us as grown-up adults, as family people, need to understand that our young people are the ones that are feeding the drugs on our streets. You know, if there's junkies on our streets breaking into our cars in the middle of the night, it's because our young people are the ones supplying them the drugs at 2 in the morning, at 10 in the morning, you know, all times of the day. And we keep turning a blind eye to it because why? Oh, you know, they're helping with the household income. We're building a house. We're building a koti back home. No, you got to understand that you want to build a koti up there. You don't need a koti back home because you're never going to go there. We're not going back. Yeah,
absolutely. You know? Brother Saeed, you know, I just really want to thank you. So last 60 seconds of this show.
Oh, we finished already.
Yeah, I know. It's not fair. I want to go on for another hour. But
go on for
next week, I've got a consultant who's going to be coming on who deals with drug addiction and rehabilitation. So that will be an interesting one to see. We're going to talk about the clinical side of how these patients are managed on the clinical side. In the meantime, in the last 30 seconds, brother, give me some hope. Are we going to resolve this? Brother, I have a great belief in you, and I know that we can do this together. You will, won't you?
We can try. That's what we can do. There's no problem that will ever be solved, but we can find solutions for individuals. So we can find an individual, we can tackle that individual's issues and get them out of the addiction, out of the supply route. We can help young people, and we can do that definitely.
3 seconds. Come back next week and join us again.